Picture this, a cookie-cutter suburb called Willow Creek Estates. The kind of place where the lawns are so perfect they look photoshopped, and every mailbox matches the HOA-approved shade of bland beige. On the surface, it's paradise, kids on bikes, Friday block parties, that fresh-cut grass, smell everywhere. But underneath, a dictatorship run by one woman, Karen Whitaker, the self-appointed queen of bylaws, fines, and passive-aggressive newsletters. She'd been HOA president for 8 years. And let me tell you, she wore that title like a crown made of other people's misery. Karen was the type who smiled sweetly at the annual meeting while sliding a $250 fine across the table for unauthorized holiday lights lingering past January 15th. She patrolled the streets in her golf cart like a mall cop on steroids, clipboard in hand, snapping photos of violations and blasting them in the monthly community standards update that everyone secretly called the Wall of Shame. One month it was Mrs. Alvarez getting dinged $100 because her rose bushes were 0.3 inches too tall. Another time, old Mr. Henderson got publicly called out for parking his classic Mustang at an angle that disrupted visual harmony. Karen always framed it the same way. It's not personal, folks. It's for the good of the community. We all have to sacrifice a little for that pristine curb appeal. Yeah, right. Her voice was all honey and concern until you pushed back. Then the claws came out and the fake politeness evaporated faster than morning dew on a July sidewalk. Carol Martin had been living in this pressure cooker for 5 years now, and she'd learned the hard way to keep her head down. She was a corporate contract lawyer, sharp as a tack, pulling in 6 figures and married to steady, kind-hearted John, a software engineer who fixed bugs by day and grilled perfect steaks by night. Their life was comfortable. Sunday lake walks, takeout on Fridays, quiet evenings where they'd laugh about work drama that didn't involve clipboards or $50 late fees. They had no kids yet, but they talked about it the way busy professionals do someday when the timing felt right. What Carol hadn't told anyone, not even John at first, was how this wasn't her first rodeo with controlling women like Karen. 15 years ago, back in college at the University of Minnesota, Carol had been best friends with a girl named Karen Whitaker. Same name, same intense energy. But back then she was just Care Bear, the passionate music major roommate who hummed this weird, catchy little tune whenever she was scheming about campus clubs or planning perfect group outings. Carol had loved the friendship at first, intense, fun, full of late-night talks. But Karen's need to control everything started wearing her down. She'd dictate what they wore to parties, what classes Carol should take, even who Carol should date. It felt suffocating. So, senior year, Carol did what she did best. She ended it cleanly, coldly, like a contract clause she knew was airtight. I don't see a future in this friendship. Karen, we want different things. You're chasing this dramatic life, and I need stability. It's better to cut it now. She blocked the number, ignored the tearful voicemails, graduated, went to law school, met John 5 years later, and built the exact secure life she'd planned. She hadn't thought about Care Bear in years. Not really, until that ordinary Saturday in Willow Creek. Carol wasn't even shopping for a guitar. She'd been killing time downtown before lunch with a friend, wandering past a dusty little pawn shop squeezed between a coffee place and a dry cleaner. The window had musical instruments crammed in like forgotten dreams, keyboards, drums, a row of guitars. On impulse, she stepped inside. The place smelled like old leather, dust, and regret. The clerk, a bored guy in his 50s, barely looked up from his phone. She browsed without purpose until her eyes landed on a Martin acoustic, used but gleaming. Price tag screaming $75. Too good to be true. Probably had a crack or dead strings. But something about it pulled her in. She lifted it off the wall, felt the weight, strummed a clumsy chord. "You can pop the case if you want to check inside," the clerk muttered. Carol laid the guitar on the counter and unlatched the hardshell case. Faded purple velvet lining. And tucked in the sheet music pocket, a single folded piece of paper, yellowed at the edges, covered in careful, handwritten notation. At the very top, in that same precise script, for Carol, the one who got away. Her stomach flipped. Carol. Her name. But Carol was common, right? Coincidence. Had to be. She unfolded it fully. Guitar chords. A melodic line sketched above them. No lyrics. Just pure music. The clerk shrugged when she asked if anyone left it. People forget stuff in cases all the time. You buying or what? She should have walked away. Instead, she heard herself say, "Yeah, I'll take it." Cash on the counter. Guitar under her arm. Lunch plans canceled with a quick text about a sudden headache. She drove straight home, heart hammering like she'd stolen something. John wasn't back from his Saturday coding marathon yet. Carol sat on the living room couch, case open on the coffee table, sheet music spread out. Her hands shook as she positioned her fingers, basic chords. Nothing fancy, but she could read music from her old piano days. She played the first few bars slowly. The melody floated up, gentle, sad, laced with this haunting little hum pattern that hit her like a freight train. That exact humming. Karen's humming. The one she'd do unconsciously back in college whenever she was feeling powerful, plotting her next perfect scheme. No one else hummed quite like that, rising on the third note, dropping on the fifth, like a secret code for control freaks. Carol stopped playing. Tears burned her eyes. This wasn't coincidence. This was Karen Whitaker's song, written for her, the one who got away. And somehow, 15 years later, in a random pawn shop 3 states away from college, the universe had dropped it right in her lap. She played the whole piece 3 times, each pass clearer, each note cutting deeper. It was beautiful in a heartbroken way, longing mixed with resentment, like the composer had poured every unsaid "you betrayed me" into the chords. By the time John walked in at 6 p.m., Carol was still on the couch, guitar across her knees, face wet, sheet music scattered like evidence at a crime scene. "Carol? Babe, what's wrong?" He dropped his laptop bag and sat beside her, concern all over his face. She handed him the paper. "I bought a guitar today. Found this inside." John read the title aloud. "For Carol, the one who got away." "Wait, is this?" "It's from Karen, my old college friend, the one I ended things with so coldly. I haven't spoken to her in 15 years. But that's her humming. I know it anywhere." Carol's voice cracked. "And now I live in her HOA neighborhood, and she's been finding me and slandering me for years, and I never even realized it was the same woman." John listened without interrupting, then squeezed her hand. "You've been carrying that guilt quietly, haven't you? The way you ended it, you were 22. Scared of her drama, swallowing your whole life. But this song finding you, that's not random. That's a sign. Carol, maybe it's time to make amends. Get closure. Before her next newsletter calls you the entitled attorney who disrespects community standards again." Carol laughed through the tears, a bitter, laughing while furious sound. "You really think I should reach out to the woman who's been making our lives hell with petty fines?" John shrugged with that steady smile she loved. "I'm secure enough in us to know this isn't about rekindling anything. It's about you not carrying 15-year-old baggage anymore. And honestly, if the universe handed you her own secret song, maybe it's time the tables turned." That night, Carol stared at her laptop for an hour before typing the email. Simple. Honest. "Hi, Karen. It's Carol Martin. We were friends in college. I found something today that I think you wrote for me. I'd like to talk if you're open to it. No pressure." She hit send before she could delete it. 3 hours later, the reply popped up. "Carol, wow, I can't believe you found that guitar. Yes. I wrote it the day I heard you'd gotten married. Sold the guitar last month to finally move on. Funny how life works. I'm actually still in Willow Creek, president of the HOA here. Small world. Coffee tomorrow at the community center, 2 p.m. Let's finally close that chapter. Carol read it twice. Small world? Karen had known exactly who she was the whole time. The fines, the newsletters calling her out by name, the public shaming, it had all been personal. And now Karen wanted closure? Carol smiled in the dark. A slow, lawyer smile. Oh, they'd have closure all right. But on her terms. The next afternoon, Carol walked into the Willow Creek Community Center carrying the guitar case like a briefcase full of dynamite. The place smelled of stale coffee and printer paper, the usual HOA meeting room vibe. Karen was already there, seated at a folding table like she owned the building, which, technically, the board did. She looked almost exactly like the college version, but polished, highlighted hair in a perfect bob, HOA polo shirt with the embroidered logo, a name tag that screamed President Karen Whitaker, here to help. Carol, you look incredible. Corporate life suits you. Karen's smile was all teeth, zero warmth. She stood for an awkward half hug that Carol returned stiffly. They sat. Karen poured 2 coffees from a thermos like this was a friendly reunion. So you found my song. After all these years. I wrote it the week I saw your wedding photos on Facebook. Something about you getting away completely just poured out. I kept the guitar as a reminder. But when I got remarried last year, I decided it was time to let the past go. Pawned it in town. Never imagined you'd walk into that exact shop. Carol kept her face neutral, the way she did in depositions. I recognized the humming immediately. That little melody you used to do whenever you were running the show back in college. It's haunting. Karen's eyes flickered, pleased, then guarded. You always did have an ear for details. Look, I know I was intense back then. Controlling. Even. And the way you ended our friendship, it stung. For years. But I've grown. This HOA role, it's my way of giving back. Creating order where there was chaos. The fines, the rules, they're not personal. They're protection. Carol almost laughed out loud. Not personal? The last 3 newsletters had featured zoomed-in photos of her mailbox flag, unauthorized political expression, and her trash cans left out 3 minutes past curfew. But she played along. I was cold back then. Karen. Cruel. Even. I should have been kinder. I'm sorry for how I cut you off. You deserved better closure. Karen leaned in, voice dropping to that fake sweet tone. Apology accepted. Water under the bridge. But since we're being honest, maybe you could show a little community spirit now. Drop that silly petition some neighbors started against the new fence height rules. Sign the board support letter. It would mean a lot. After all, we were like sisters once. There was the hook. Karen wasn't here for closure. She was here to leverage 15-year-old guilt into more control. Carol felt the old rage bubble up, but kept her voice steady. I'll think about it. They parted with another plastic hug. But Carol had been recording the entire conversation on her phone, hidden in her purse, lawyer instincts on full alert. As she drove home, the pieces clicked. Every ridiculous fine, every public shaming, every time Karen had twisted the bylaws to target her specifically, it all traced back to that Grudge song. Karen hadn't let go. She'd weaponized the hurt into a neighborhood empire. John listened to the recording that night, eyebrows climbing. She's using your apology as leverage? Classic. But you recorded it. Evidence, Carol said, smiling for the first time in days. I'm done enduring quietly. Time to observe a little closer. Over the next 2 weeks, Karen's mask slipped further. A new violation notice appeared in Carol's mailbox. $300 for excessive plant variety, disrupting aesthetic uniformity. Another newsletter featured a blurry photo of Carol's car with the caption, "Some residents still believe rules are optional." Reminder that compliance builds character, Neighbors started whispering, avoiding eye contact at the mailboxes. Carol smiled politely, nodded, but inside she was building a file thicker than the HOA rulebook itself. She attended every board meeting as a concerned resident, taking meticulous notes. She chatted up other victims, Mrs. Alvarez with her two tall roses, Mr. Henderson and his angle parking ticket, and quietly recorded their stories. The guitar stayed in the living room. Every night, Carol practiced the song until she could play it flawlessly, the melody now a battle anthem in her head. Then the escalation hit critical mass. Karen called an emergency meeting to vote on enhanced enforcement fees that would double fines for repeat offenders, naming Carol specifically in the agenda as the example resident. The email subject line, "Protecting our community from entitled holdouts." Carol read it at breakfast, laughed at Sharp, "This is ridiculous," laugh, and told John, "She's scared." The song reminded her, she's still the same controlling girl I walked away from. Time to remind the whole neighborhood. The annual HOA meeting was held in the community center auditorium. Folding chairs packed with 90 nervous residents. Karen stood at the podium in full power mode, blazer, gavel, giant projected slide titled 2026 Compliance Report. A few bad apples spoiling the barrel. Her voice dripped concern. "Friends, we've seen an uptick in violations lately. One resident in particular has repeatedly challenged our standards, forcing us to spend precious volunteer hours on enforcement. But tonight we vote on stronger measures to protect what we've built." Murmurs rippled. Carol sat in the third row, guitar case at her feet, phone recording in her pocket, heart steady like courtroom adrenaline. She'd spent the last week turning observations into a presentation no one could ignore. Karen called for public comments. Carol stood. The room went pin-drop silent. "Before we vote," Carol said, voice clear and lawyer sharp, "I'd like to share something that might explain why certain rules feel so personal." She lifted the guitar case onto the stage, opened it with a theatrical click. Gasps. She pulled out the sheet music, held it high. "This was inside a guitar I bought at a local pawn shop 2 weeks ago. Handwritten. Titled for Carol, The One Who Got Away." She projected the scan onto the big screen. The title filled the wall in Karen's unmistakable handwriting. Karen's face drained of color. "I recognized the melody instantly," Carol continued, plugging the guitar into the house sound system. "It's based on a very specific humming pattern my old college friend used to do whenever she felt in control." She began to play, slow, haunting, note perfect. The room leaned forward. The tune floated through the speakers, beautiful and bitter all at once. When the last chord faded, Carol spoke again. "That friend was Karen Whitaker. 15 years ago, I ended our friendship because her need to control everything was suffocating. I did it coldly. I apologized to her privately last week. But instead of closure, she tried to use my guilt to silence a petition against unfair rules. And now I realize every fine, every newsletter photo, every public shaming I've endured, it was never about curb appeal. It was about a 15-year grudge because I got away." She hit play on her phone. The recording of their coffee reunion filled the room, Karen's sweet voice turning sharp. "Maybe you could show a little community spirit now. Drop that silly petition." The audience shifted, uncomfortable. Someone whispered, "She knew all along?" Carol didn't stop. She opened her binder, page after page of documented abuses. Mrs. Alvarez's rose fine with Karen's handwritten note, "Teach her a lesson, Mr." Henderson's parking ticket dated the same week Karen saw Carol's wedding announcement on social media years earlier. Screenshots. Timelines. The song is Exhibit A. Karen wrote this song the week I got married because she couldn't let go. She pawned the guitar to move on, but the obsession never left. And she's been running this neighborhood like her personal revenge fantasy ever since. Karen finally snapped. The polite mask shattered. She snatched the gavel and slammed it. This is outrageous. You can't bring personal drama into official business. I built this community. Those rules keep property values high. If you don't like it, move. Her voice cracked into full Karen territory. Do you people even know how much I sacrifice? I give my weekends for inspections. And this lawyer thinks she can waltz in with a guitar and undo everything. She's the one who abandoned me. She's the problem. The room erupted. Residents who'd stayed silent for years started shouting. You fined my grandmother for birdseed. My flag was American. How is that political? You're using the HOA like your own little cult. The board members looked shell-shocked. One older gentleman stood up. I motion we remove President Whitaker immediately. All in favor. Hands shot up like fireworks. Unanimous. Karen stood there, mouth opening and closing like a fish. Face beet red, clutching her rulebook like a shield. Security, 2 volunteer dads, escorted her out while she screamed about lawsuits, and you'll all regret this. The door slammed behind her. Silence. Then thunderous applause. The meeting turned into a celebration. Neighbors hugged Carol, thanked her, shared their own horror stories with relieved laughter. I thought I was the only one. She fined me $75 for leaving my hose out, said it was visual clutter. The new interim president, a mild-mannered accountant named Mike, promised a complete bylaws review and an immediate fine amnesty for the last 2 years. Carol drove home that night with a guitar in the passenger seat. Windows down, warm spring air rushing in. John was waiting on the porch with 2 glasses of wine. She told him everything, replaying the meltdown in vivid detail. They laughed until their sides hurt. The image of Karen's face when the song started playing, the way her for the community speech dissolved into "you abandoned me." For the first time in years, Carol slept without that low-level dread of the next violation notice. The next morning, the neighborhood Facebook group exploded. Someone had recorded the whole meeting on their phone. The video went viral locally, titled, HOA Karen melts down over 15-year Grudge song. Comments poured in, this is the most satisfying thing I've seen all year. Finally, someone stood up. Even people from other subdivisions tagged friends. If your HOA has a Karen, watch this. Karen tried to fight back. Of course. She posted a rambling statement about personal vendettas and false accusations, threatened legal action. But the damage was done. 3 board members resigned in solidarity with her. The city even opened a light investigation into misuse of HOA funds after Carol anonymously forwarded her evidence packet. Within a month, Karen sold her house at a loss and moved to a condo downtown. Rumor had it she was banned from 3 other HOAs already. Carol kept the guitar. She never played for Carol, the one who got away again in public. But every so often, late at night when the neighborhood was quiet, she'd strum a few bars and smile. Not with sadness anymore, with the deep, satisfying chuckle of someone who'd finally set down a weight she didn't realize she was carrying. She'd apologized for the past. Yes, but the universe hadn't sent the song so she could grovel. It had sent it so she could expose the truth. Some people never change. They just find bigger stages to perform their control issues on. And when you finally stand up, smart, patient, armed with evidence and a killer melody, the house of cards collapses beautifully. John started learning guitar too. Their Friday nights now sometimes included clumsy duets and stories about the great HOA song Takedown. Neighbors waved extra warmly when they passed. The rose bushes bloomed freely. Flags flew without fear. And the new rulebook? Only 2 pages long. Months later, on a perfect Saturday, Carol sat on her back patio, guitar across her lap, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors no HOA could ever regulate. John brought out iced tea and joined her. You know, she said, plucking a soft chord, I used to think security meant never looking back. never admitting I hurt someone. But finding that song, it taught me you can't control everything. Not the past, not other people's obsessions, not even a neighborhood full of scared sheep. Sometimes the universe drops a literal smoking gun, guitar in your lap, and the only right move is to use it. John laughed, and you used it like a pro. I'm proud of you. She leaned against him. I forgave myself for being cold back then. And I forgave the version of Karen who was just a scared, controlling girl. But the woman who spent 15 years weaponizing that pain against an entire community, she got exactly what she deserved. Sweet, public, humiliating justice. Across the street, new neighbors were moving in, young couple with a dog and zero HOA experience. Carol waved. They waved back, smiling, unaware of the war that had been fought and won on these same streets. She never heard from Karen again. The song stayed tucked in the case. A private trophy. Carol learned new pieces, happy ones, hopeful ones. And every time she played, she felt lighter, freer, like the one who got away had finally, truly escaped. Because here's the thing about grudges and power trips and ridiculous rules. They only work as long as good people stay quiet. The moment one person stands up, guitar in hand, evidence in pocket, and says enough, the whole illusion crumbles. And the satisfaction? It's sweeter than any HOA-approved dessert at the block party. So next time your HOA sends you a fine for something absurd, remember Carol, remember the song, and maybe, just maybe, start taking notes. Because somewhere out there, the universe might be preparing your own perfect weapon. Have you ever discovered something from your past that completely flipped the script on a bully? Drop your stories in the comments. I read every single one. If this tale of HOA Karen exposure, patient revenge, and that glorious moment when the tyrant gets dethroned made you laugh and cheer, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss another satisfying takedown. Until next time, stay petty, stay smart, and never let the Karens win.